Okay, I think we have everyone. Thanks everyone for joining. Welcome everyone. We're so glad you could join us for this Cross Jurisdictional Workshop. Today we're diving into Kitsap County's Natural Resources Asset Management Program, what it is, how it's evolved, and what we've learned along the way. And before we do that, we have a few reminders for you for how to engage through Zoom today. So I think if we go to the next slide, I would ask everyone to maybe rename yourself and include your affiliation in the participant list. You can mute your microphone unless you're speaking or in a breakout group discussion. You can keep your video on if you're able, especially in breakout groups. Raise your hand to notify us if you have a question or a comment. You can add questions into the Q&A box throughout the presentation. We also have Casey Hart, who will manage the technical portion of this workshop. So you can message her if you have technical difficulties. And also please note that this workshop is being recorded. Okay. So I think we can go to the next slide. This program has been in the works for a few years, and we're excited to walk you through some key milestones and lessons learned. We know you all bring different perspectives and experiences with natural resource asset management, and that collective insight is what makes today's conversation so valuable. So our goals for today is to give you an overview of the program, and we want to leave you with practical ideas and inspiration you can take back and apply in your own work. Now, there's an acronym you'll keep hearing today, and that is KNRAMP, and that stands for Kitsap County Natural Resources Asset Management Program. So here's how this workshop will flow. We'll start with introductions and a program overview. Then we'll take a few clarifying questions. And after that, we'll move into breakout discussions and wrap up with group takeaways. So I think we can move to the next slide. So you may wonder, how do I participate in the focus group discussions? We will not launch the breakout groups now, but I want to give you a heads up about this. So you can choose your own adventure. We'll have 5 breakout groups, and you can select your topic of interest. You can choose your room by clicking the breakout rooms icon in Zoom, and you can also transition across rooms. So you can move between breakout groups if you want to participate in multiple discussions. And we'll make sure to offer additional instructions once we get to that portion of the workshop. Now, I know we have a great group on the call today, and I'd love to get a sense of who's in the room. So we're going to use a quick interactive tool to see where everyone's joining from. So Casey is going to add in the chat a poll link. So once she does that, go ahead and click on that link. And also, as we're getting settled, please also take a moment to drop your name and organization into the chat. And Casey is already sharing her screen with a poll. So this is a map where you can basically add a pin on the map to indicate where you're calling from. Casey, would you mind giving us a quick walkthrough of how to participate in the poll?
Yeah, thanks, Dana. Hello. So this is a nice poll where you can go on. Oh, I see some pins already coming on there. Click on the link. You can click the QR code and just drop in. You should be able to just touch a location where you are representing. And as you can see, the pins are coming up, and that's about it. So back to you, Dana.
Thank you, Casey. And I'm going to re-add the link in the chat in case people are still joining. So I want to make sure that they have the link. I think we can give people a few seconds to respond to the poll before we move into the next session. And thanks everyone for adding your names and organizations into the chat as well. And we'll introduce our team in a moment here. Okay. So I would say maybe we can go ahead and move to the next portion. Thanks for taking a moment to add your PIN. It's a small action, but it helps us visualize the collective expertise in the room. Now, we'd like to introduce our core team and some of the members who've been supporting this work. And we'll start with the Kitsap County. And the way we're going to do this is that one person from each group will introduce their full team to keep things moving. And as you go, please share your name, organization, and role. And we'll start with Curvy, and then we'll move to Marla, and then to Steve, then to Mindy, and then to Elizabeth. So, Curvy, would you like to kick us off and introduce the county team?
Yes, I'm happy to. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Curvy Mesablu Yobek. I'm the Natural Resources Manager here in Kitsap County, Department of Community Development. And I'm honored to introduce a few key members of our Kitsap County team that have been instrumental to the development and early implementation of this program. So first off, Brittany Gordon. She's the project manager from Kitsap County. Jim Rogers, senior long-range planner, who's also a member of our team. Jonathan Rain, our GIS technology analyst from community development. And also Douglas Adams, also a GIS technology analyst from Public Works. Thanks, Dana.
Thanks, Curvy. Marla, would you like to go next?
Hi there. My name is Marla Powers. I'm an environmental planner for the Port Gamble Squalum tribe. And I've been working on this project since about May of 2023. And on my team with the Port Gamble Squalum tribe is Rome McCall. She's the director for Natural Resources Department. She was the original team member for KNRAMP, and she's been working on this since inception. So I'm happy that she is going to be speaking later. Chloe Donaldson is our environmental program manager. She's new to the team and is very ready to engage in this process and excited about it. Other members of our team include Benjamin Harrison. He's an environmental scientist and he does water resources. Joshua Carter is also an environmental scientist and he does water quality. Mike Higgins is our habitat biologist. And Richard Ogle is our environmental education outreach and coordinator. So he'll be helping us get the word out about this program. Thanks.
Thanks, Marla. Steve, could you introduce the Suquamish tribe team?
Sure. I'm Steve Todd, salmon recovery biologist with the Suquamish tribe, and I've been working on the KNRAMP project as part of the core team for a couple of years. And my supervisor, Allison O'Sullivan, is hoping to join shortly. She is the, I understand she needs the link. So Allison is the ecosystem recovery program manager with the Suquamish tribe. And before Allison and I were heavily involved in KNRAMP, Tom Ostrom, who many of you probably know, before he retired a couple of years ago, he was very involved in the core team as well from the Suquamish tribe. So thanks, good to be here.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Mindy, do you want to introduce the WCA team?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Mindy Roberts. I'm the Puget Sound Program Director for Washington Conservation Action Education Fund. Also one of the originators of this program years and years ago. I guess that counts as OG at this point. And I have with me Robinson Lowe, who's our Habitat Policy Manager for Washington Conservation Action Education Fund. He'll be presenting some of the details to you later.
Thank you, Mindy. Appreciate it. Elizabeth, would you like to go next?
Yes, thanks, Dana. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces on the call today. My name is Elizabeth McManus, and I'm the managing principal at Ross Strategic, and I lead our ecosystem practice. And like Mindy, I was part of the original group. And I'm just so excited that we can share the progress of this project with you all today and get your ideas and insights and responses to it. I'm here with Dana Stefan, who's your facilitator today, and Casey Hart, who's assisting with facilitation and running your technology. And we're just super excited for this conversation. Back to you, Dana.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks everyone for these introductions. I will note for everyone that we actually added an asterisk to everyone's name. So everyone who is actually from our core team is designed to have an asterisk at the beginning of their name so that you can recognize them. Before we move into the program overview, we're honored to have a few words of welcome from the county leadership and the tribal organizations supporting this effort. And we also have some brief remarks from DNR about why this particular project grabbed their attention and why they chose to support it. So Kirby, if you don't mind, I'll turn it over to you to introduce them.
Yes. Again, I'm really honored to introduce Commissioner Christine Rolfes to provide the opening remarks from Kitsap County. Many of you probably know Commissioner Rolfes. She's currently the representative for District 1 or North Kitsap and the current chair of the Kitsap County Board of County Commissioners. Commissioner Rolfes serves as the Kitsap County representative to the West Sound Partners for Ecosystem Recovery lead entity, as well as the local integrating organization. She's also the Kitsap County representative to the Hood Canal Coordinating Council Board of Directors, where she serves as the chair for 2025. Commissioner Rolfes has over 2 decades of experience in local and state government and has proven leadership in environmental conservation, education reform, transportation policy, and fiscal management. She continues to be a strong and impactful advocate for environmental stewardship. So please help me welcome Commissioner Rolfes.
Thank you, Kirby. To resounding sound of applause. Thank you. I am honored to have been invited to share a few welcoming remarks on behalf of Kitsap County. It's my privilege to welcome you to this first Cross Jurisdiction Workshop. It is an important opportunity to come together, share expertise, strengthen our approach to natural resource stewardship, not just here in Kitsap County, but ideally across Puget Sound by sharing lessons learned. Kitsap County, for those of you who don't live here, is surrounded by over 200 miles of shoreline. We have hundreds of lowland fish-bearing streams and rural landscapes that are closely integrated with urban growth. Our responsibility is to care for these lands and waters, ensuring that both our natural ecosystems and our communities can thrive for generations to come. It's essential to recognize that we're building upon a legacy of stewardship that long predates our modern efforts. The Suquamish tribe and the Port Gamble Sklallam tribe have been the original caretakers of these lands and waters for thousands of years, sustaining the balance between people and nature with deep wisdom and enduring commitment. Today, their continued engagement and leadership as members of our core team are invaluable, and we are grateful for their contributions, their knowledge, and their dedication to ensuring that we move forward in a way that respects and honors the lands. Some parts of our county remain fairly pristine, and we know they should be preserved, while others require restoration to recover the lost ecological functions. Achieving this balance demands the careful planning and pragmatic approach, and understanding that our financial and operational resources are finite. So the Natural Resource Asset Management Program offers the structured framework for prioritizing our conservation and restoration efforts. By directing our limited resources strategically, we can maximize impact, ensure sustainability, and secure the health of our natural assets, both for today and the future. This program treats our natural resources as essential infrastructure, recognizing their role in providing lasting benefits to our communities and our ecosystems. I want to conclude by expressing my gratitude to the former teams of Kitsap County Commissioners who supported this forward-thinking approach, and to the DCD staff, the Washington Conservation Action Education Fund, and Ross Strategic, all of whose dedication has been instrumental in shaping and piloting the program. This workshop represents a collective commitment to responsible resource management. By working together across jurisdictions, across disciplines, and in partnership with tribal leaders, we can build a stronger, more resilient future. I look forward to today's discussions and the insights each of you will bring, and I appreciate being included very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rolfes. I would next want to introduce Roma Call, who is the Director for Natural Resource Department of the Port Gamble S'Klallam Tribe, to provide some opening remarks.
Thank you, Kirby. Thank you, everyone. I'm Roma Call, Natural Resources Director for the Port Gamble S'Klallam Tribe, and thank you, Marla Powers, for introducing our team earlier. The Port Gamble S'Klallam tribal leadership was unable to attend today, but they wanted me to say a few words on their behalf. The tribe strongly supports this effort, and the tribe has participated in the KNRAMP process since its inception, as has been mentioned. I think that was 2014, and it's committed to continuing that support through the next year. Marla Powers, our environmental planner, and Chloe Donaldson, our environmental program manager, have been working with our partners to contribute to the development of the program. The tribe would like to thank Kitsap County, the Suquamish Tribe, Washington Conservation Action Education Fund, Ross Strategic, and our other partners for your dedication to this effort. Our work in the tribe's Natural Resources Department is to protect and restore natural resources to ensure the tribe will be able to continue practicing its treaty right to hunt and gather and to fish and harvest in its usual and custom area, which includes a large area of Kitsap County. The tribe appreciates the county taking the initiative to integrate the values of those resources into its planning and regulatory programs. And our hope is that the program will ensure the recognition of natural resource values as assets that need to be protected for future generations. Thank you again, and we're looking forward to the workshop.
Thank you, Roma. Next, I would like to introduce Steve Todd, who's the salmon recovery biologist with the Ecosystem Recovery Program of the Suquamish Tribe. Steve?
Yeah, well, thanks, Kirby. On behalf of the Suquamish tribal leadership, I'm Suquamish tribal staff, and I'll provide some opening remarks from the perspective of tribal staff involved in the core team as part of the Kitsap Natural Resource Asset Management Program. The tribe appreciates the commitment of the county and all of those who've been involved to go down this path in developing KNRAMP. I'll just say for short, you might hear that a few more times today. We think this can help change the way we view and manage ecosystem services through our decisions and our investments. I mentioned Tom Ostrom in our introductions earlier. Tom, as many of you might know, is a longtime Suquamish biologist who retired 2 years ago, and he was an early advocate for KNRAMP and sort of a founding voice, I think. And a big reason for the tribe's continued support is the premise of putting ecosystem services on equal footing with capital facilities investments like roads, wastewater, parks, and other more conventional hard infrastructure. The Suquamish tribe has been supportive and continues to be involved in the KNRAMP core team, starting with Tom and now with Allison O'Sullivan and me. We see this as an important tool for informing our decisions and as a process for gaining new knowledge and further developing opportunities for collaboration with the county and other partners that have a stake in protecting and restoring ecosystem services. Another reason Suquamish has supported KNRAMP is that it recognizes the need to not only maintain ecosystem level of service, we'll get familiar with that term later too, through ecosystem protections, as challenging as that might be, but it also recognizes the need to improve ecosystem level of service through restoration or enhancement, things like removing armor along marine shorelines where we can, doing riparian restoration, and improving fish passage. A couple of final remarks are that the Kitsap Natural Resources Asset Management Program can also be another way to engage the greater public and foster or reinforce the message of shared resources and shared responsibility. And I'll just leave with that in general, the tribal perspective is that the cultural relevance of natural resources is strongly connected to the use of those resources. And prime examples are through salmon, shellfish, and the gathering of traditional plants. And so thank you. Looking forward to the rest of the workshop.
Thanks, Steve. Next, I would like to introduce Rebecca Brown, who's the Habitat Strategic Initiative Planner from Washington State Department of Natural Resources. It's also co-lead for the Habitat Strategic Initiative. So the Habitat SIL, or Strategic Initiative Leads, has consistently prioritized the Kitsap Natural Resource Asset Management Program, which is funded through federal funds through the National Estuary Program. Rebecca?
Yeah, thanks, Curvy. So I'm Rebecca Brown. I'm at DNR, and as Curvy said, I'm part of the Habitat Strategic Initiative Lead, and we are one of the funders for KNRAMP. And we're a program that is co-led by DNR and Fish and Wildlife, and we're funded through a cooperative agreement with the EPA. And the Habitat still advances habitat priorities in Puget Sound, focused on recovering healthy shorelines, protecting marine vegetation such as kelp and eelgrass, reconnecting floodplains and estuaries, and preventing unchecked development in important ecological upland areas such as forests, farmlands, and riparian areas. And our program advances these habitat goals through strategic planning, convening partners, and targeted funding. And with advice and input from our advisory team, we issue investment plans that guide our priorities for funding projects. So in 2022, one of our funding priorities was titled Changing Planning Paradigms, and that focused on integrating habitat recovery priorities and nature-based solutions into planning and implementation frameworks in the Puget Sound. So naturally, we were really thrilled to be able to offer funding to Kitsap County for them to continue this development for KNRAMP. In addition to very clearly changing planning paradigms, the program has the potential to protect and restore shorelines, estuaries, floodplains, and the riparian areas that are so important for Puget Sound recovery. The Habitat SIL really emphasizes funding for innovative projects like KNRAMP that can be replicated and expanded throughout Puget Sound and to share successes across the region. So I'm so pleased to see so many people here at the webinar today, and I hope you'll be inspired by this awesome project that's obviously taken a lot of time and effort through all these partnerships. But I really think that thinking like this and programs like this can really fundamentally change the way we protect and restore our natural resources and how we think about our natural resources. So we've just been really excited to be able to help fund a project like this. Thank you.
Thank you for those welcome remarks, and thank you, Curvy, for walking us through this portion. And also thank you for your participation today and for your continued support of this work as we keep implementing this program. As we transition into the presentation, we'd love to hear from you again. So we will be using a quick poll again. And again, just click the link in the chat that Casey is going to add in a moment. And we would like you to add in the poll, maybe share one benefit that comes to mind when you think about natural resources like streams, shorelines, and forests. So we'll give you maybe a minute to add your responses, and you will see those responses in real time as they appear on the screen. And as you do that, I'll just mention that we have our own word cloud into the slides, but we're curious to see how that compares to your answers. So I'm seeing water, clean water, habitat, salmon, recreation, water quality, resiliency, stormwater, populations, animals. This is impressive, and thank you for participating in this poll. Thanks, everyone. I would say it's always inspiring to see the range of values people associate with natural resources. So thank you for this word cloud. This is amazing. Okay. So I would say maybe with that, let's move into the heart of today's discussion. We'll start with an overview of the program. So you'll hear from Brittany, Robinson, Marla, and Steve. And then we'll have about 15 minutes for clarifying questions before we move into the breakout groups for deeper discussion. And then we'll come back together at the end to share a few takeaways. And as you're listening to the presentation, I do want to make sure that you're aware that we have a Q&A box. So at the bottom of your screen in the Zoom application, you have the Q&A box, and if you don't see that, click on the More icon. We will not take questions during the presentation, but we would like you to submit your questions throughout the presentation so that we can address them at the end. So with that, I would say, Brittany, take it away.
Hi, are you hearing me okay?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Brittany Gordon. I'm currently the Natural Resource Coordinator in Kitsap County Department of Community Development and the project manager of this program. I'd also like to acknowledge some previous county staff who worked on this program before me, including Dave Ward and Matt Medina, who were really instrumental to getting this off the ground. And so, as you've heard, the acronym KNRAMP or KNRAMP tossed around a lot today. That's just a reminder, that's the Kitsap Natural Resource Asset Management Program. And so we're here to share about that, and also to share about just natural asset management in general, in the hopes that it might, inspire or provide some foundation for other jurisdictions and other partners to maybe consider, implementing something similar in their jurisdictions. And selfishly, we're hoping that many of you do, so that we can continue to grow our program as well and learn from each other. So looking forward to working with many of you in the future. So the purpose of the Kitsap Natural Resource Asset Management Program is multifaceted. So first and foremost, the program acknowledges that natural resources are shared community assets in the public trust to be stewarded by the local government. And of course, that doesn't mean that the local government is the only entity with the responsibility to steward natural resources. That is, a shared responsibility amongst all of our community members, as well as the businesses and other entities that operate and that overlap with natural resources. But we do acknowledge that as a county or as a local government, we are positioned in such a way to be able to, lead stewardship of natural resources, especially as kind of the land use decision maker in the area, in our region. Another purpose of the program is to proactively manage, inventory, assess, protect, and improve natural assets in Kitsap County. Proactively being the key word, because I think, as many of us know, natural resource management often, with local jurisdictions at least, kind of tends to take a reactive approach. Many of our jurisdictions are dealing with infrastructure that was built long ago that did not take natural resources and habitat and important ecological areas into account. And so we end up, with limited resources, we end up in a very reactive cycle. And so, it can feel like it takes more resources to be proactive, when in reality, it really is just shifting those resources kind of on the timeline toward the beginning of planning, and can help us be more efficient in the long run. The program is also intended to inform county planning and decision-making frameworks across all departments that overlap with natural assets. And so we, within Kitsap County, and I know every county is a little bit different, every city is a little bit different, but, we have many departments, and many of those departments overlap with natural assets, natural resources in some way. although not all of those departments would consider themselves natural resource managers. And so this program helps to kind of inform the planning and decision-making processes across all departments, including those that maybe traditionally haven't considered themselves natural resource managers, to remind us all across departments that we're all natural asset managers as long as we overlap with natural assets in some way. The program also strives to collaborate and improve collaboration with partners, both internal and external, to implement actions to protect and improve natural assets. So that includes, our tribes, our core team, all of our internal departments, as well as many external partners such as land trusts and salmon recovery groups and other non-governmental organizations and the other jurisdictions within the county. And all of this kind of feeds into this vision to treat natural resources as assets in the public trust to be stewarded by the local government. And we really aim to bring natural resources to the forefront of asset management decision-making across the county. Next slide, please. And so this is very similar to the word cloud we just did, but as you know, by the impressive information you all shared, natural resources provide services to our community through ecological functions, as well as human health and well-being related services. Next. And because natural resources provide important services to our community, we feel that they should be treated as important assets. And so the term asset management traditionally refers to treating the components of the public infrastructure system as assets within the public trust to be stewarded by the local government. So natural resource asset management refers to treating natural resources as assets that should be managed with the same consideration to costs of services and investment priorities as built infrastructure. Next, please. And so as we're treating natural resources as assets that the county helps manage, we found it appropriate to use the same terminology that our built infrastructure asset managers use. And so one term that is used commonly in asset management is level of service, which is a term that defines the condition of the asset and the types and amounts of service that the asset is providing. So it would describe the asset current condition. It could be used to help us track changes in an asset's condition and to set minimum standards and goals for asset conditions. So a roadway that is not functioning well, that maybe doesn't convey traffic very efficiently or is unsafe or in poor condition would receive a lower level of service rating than a roadway that is functioning well. Similarly, a stream that is providing the intended ecological and community functions of clean water and hydrologic function and flood control, etc., would receive a higher level of service score than a stream that is poorly functioning or, polluted or has fish passage barriers, etc. And then desired level of service is a term that we are using to describe the long-term goal for the condition and function of natural assets. And so we have defined our desired levels of service based on existing government policies and long-term goals related to natural resource management and climate adaptation. Next. And actually one more note I wanted to add on the previous slide. We've also found that, working across departments within the county, and we work with a lot of traditional asset managers, it may seem like a small thing, but helping us all speak the same language with regards to assets and level of service has been really helpful in getting us on the same page with other departments, all kind of coming together to view natural resources as assets. And so speaking the same language is a really great kind of first step in sort of a culture shift toward natural resources as assets. Next slide, sorry. And then we've introduced the core team a few times here, but just another note that includes the Suquamish Tribe, Kitsap County, and our many departments, including parks, public works, including roads and stormwater, planning, community development, and others, and the Suquamish and Port Gamble Sklallam tribes, and we've been supported by Washington Conservation Action Education Fund and Ross Strategic, and we've been funded by the National Estuary Program since 2018, first with a Stormwater Strategic Initiative lead grant, and then through a Habitat Strategic Initiative lead grant. So we're very grateful for their support and funding. Next. And so what exactly has been the role of the core team for our natural asset management program? So this team includes natural resource and asset management professionals with local expertise representing the local tribes and county departments and divisions. The group has been responsible for collaborative decision-making guided by science policy and shared priorities. Some of those include emphasizing ecosystem services beyond monetary and economic value. And so I'll just pause to note that if you were hoping today for a presentation about earth economics and valuating natural assets, I'm sad to say that we will not be sharing much on that. It was decided pretty early on in collaboration with the core team to move away from that approach because we wanted the emphasis on ecosystem services rather than monetary value. So we chose to not go that direction, but would absolutely encourage any other jurisdictions to consider that if that is a priority for you and your core team and your local tribes. And there's certainly been a lot of work done in that realm as well to support that. Other shared priorities include, other decisions that the core team helped to guide included the selection of 3 priority natural assets, the key attributes that define the function of those assets, and the data sources that we would use for those attributes. The core team also got together to define the management units for each asset, how we were going to geographically break down each asset. The core team selected the pilot watersheds for implementation, which were Big Beef and Chico Creeks. The core team helped to identify the science-based desired level of service and the level of service threshold. So you'll see later that our various level of service ranges have kind of high, medium, low. And so the core team helped to decide where to break off those thresholds. The core team develops the implementation strategies and actions as well, and are very important partners for implementing those strategies and actions. And then finally, the core team has helped to connect us with additional implementation partners who can help us to implement those strategies and actions in the future. Next, please. So the 3 assets that our program has decided to focus on first and include in the program are forests, streams, and marine shorelines. And within each of those assets in the county is broken up into geographical management units. So for example, marine shoreline management units are drift cells, so kind of smaller units. But for each asset, there are a few attributes that were selected to feed into the level of service score for that asset. So for forests, the attributes that feed into the score are forest cover, percent forest cover, and successional class. So what percentage of forest is over a certain size and age class. For streams, the attributes are riparian vegetation, so percent cover in the riparian area. The biological condition, the BIBI, benthic index of biotic integrity, which is kind of a water quality indicator, as well as a water quality indicator for E. coli, and then also fish passage barrier. So that all feeds into the stream level of service score. And for marine shorelines, the 3 attributes that feed into that score in each unit are shoreline armoring, so the percent of the shoreline that's armored, percent cover of riparian vegetation, and water quality through the shellfish harvest designation. Next, please. And selecting our data sources and the technology that we would use for the program was definitely a process and also predates myself. But for any other jurisdictions that are interested in doing something like this, it would be important for you to consider what data sources and technology are that are available to you and that would best support your program. So it's important to know that natural asset management is platform agnostic. There are a variety of asset management programs out there that could be used, software programs. We use Cartograph and GIS. Cartograph's a geospatial asset management software and database that's traditionally used for built assets. It's used by our Public Works Department, and I believe going to be used by our Parks Department in the future. So it made sense for us to be using the same program that they're using, so that asset managers can view built assets kind of geospatially on a map alongside our natural assets. And then we also use GIS, and Cartograph and GIS talk to each other. I'm not a technology analyst, but they work well together, and GIS is a geospatial mapping software and database, which most people are probably familiar with. And then when selecting the data sets for our attributes, the core team felt it was important that we select data sets that are, first of all, geospatially available, can be kind of put on a map, because that's how we present most of our information in this program. Also, that data sets that are updated regularly. And all of our data sets are hosted by public agencies, which we felt ensured a certain level of quality control, and was very easy to pull in and update. But it's important to note that different jurisdictions might have different data available to them. Like if your jurisdiction collects data on wetlands, then you might want to pull in wetlands as an asset, and we might in the future update our data that we're using or our assets that we're including based on what's available to us. Next, please. So this is what our level of service maps look like for each asset. On the left, we have marine shorelines. In the middle, we have streams. And on the right, we have forests. And so you can see that each asset is broken up into smaller management units. We have interactive versions of these maps. So you can actually, and we'll probably show that later, or at least in the breakout groups, you can click on each unit and see what is the level of service score. So ranging from very low to very high, there's different score ranges, and it'll tell you what the actual number is for the overall level of service. And then it will also tell you what the level of service score is for each attribute that feeds into that overall level of service score. So it's pretty neat. Next slide, please. And so this slide breaks down for each asset the attributes that contribute to the score and the range for how you get the score for each attribute. So I'll use marine shorelines as an example. So in Cartograph, it would calculate the percent of shoreline armoring, which would range from greater than 75% armored shoreline, which would be like very low category, to less than 1% armored shoreline in the management unit, which would be a very high level of service. Shoreline vegetation, likewise, different percentages of forest cover within the shoreline buffer would produce a specific shoreline vegetation score. And then depending on what the shellfish growing area classification is, that would produce another score. And then Cartograph kind of calculates out an overall level of service for that management unit based on the scores of each of those attributes. Next, please. And so for areas in the county or management units in the county that are falling into the very low to medium level of service range, our strategies would focus on restoring the functions of those management units to bring the score up into the high to very high range. And for areas that have high to very high level of service scores, we would have a strategy to preserve those areas and protect the already high to very high functions of those areas. Next, please. I'm going to go over to Robinson Lowe to introduce our pilot watershed actions.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. Just as another quick reminder, my name is Robinson Lowe, the Habitat Policy Manager at Washington Conservation Action. And I am here to just highlight some of the actions that we identified in our pilot watershed. So last year in 2024, we looked specifically at Chico Creek and Big Beef Creek as kind of like a test or a rollout for this program. And looking at our marine shorelines, the riparian waterways, and our upland forest for these two watersheds, we identified areas that were below our desired level of service of high. And then we worked to identify actions to improve those attributes that are limiting the score, the level of service score, to improve that level of service up to our desired level of service. So for marine shorelines in Big Beef Creek, we looked at removing existing shoreline armoring in a management unit that is below desired level of service, as well as identifying and correcting any pollution to reclassify those shellfish growing areas. And we also identified any partners that may help in this work in conducting shoreline armor removal or conducting these PIC programs. And those would be Shore Friendly, various county divisions, the Kitsap Public Health District, the Washington State Department of Health, the Hood Canal Salmon Enhancement Group, and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. For riparian areas, we noted that fish blockages or fish passage barriers were a limiting factor in a lot of the scores, holding back the level of service from reaching that high level of service. So we looked at identifying fish passage barriers to remove to improve level of service, as well as protecting and expanding existing riparian vegetation in these management units. And our partners with this are the various Kitsap County divisions that own parcels that overlap with these riparian units, as well as the Kitsap Conservation District and Great Peninsula Conservancy. And then finally, for the upland forest, we looked at and uplifted identifying and protecting mature and legacy forest areas. And our partners with this are Fish and Wildlife, the Department of Natural Resources, the Hood Canal Salmon Enhancement Group, Great Peninsula Conservancy, and Kitsap County Parks. Go ahead to the next slide. And so this is just going to be a quick example of kind of what we did a little bit more detailed in Big Beef Creek. So you can see this is a shoreline management unit in Big Beef Creek. Its current level of service is medium. It's about 53 based on all of the scores calculated for shoreline armoring, shellfish rating, and forest cover. And as you can see here, the shoreline armoring score is very low. So that's the attribute that's holding back this management unit from achieving kind of a high desired level of service or level of service. So go ahead to the next slide. And here, a little bit more detailed. Again, on the left, you'll see the score for shoreline armoring is 14, so it's very low. The percentage there, so that management unit has about an 83% shoreline armoring, so most of it is armored. And the overall score for that management unit is 53, looking at the average of the scores for all three of our attributes. And we identified an action to decrease shoreline armoring from 83 down to 49%. Which equates to about 4,000 feet of shoreline armoring for us to remove. And then we kind of mathed it out to see how much would that improve our current level of service if we removed that shoreline armoring, and would it reach that gap of 7 kind of points to get to 60, which is our threshold for high level of service. And if we did remove that shoreline armoring, we would actually get up to 63, which would achieve our desired level of service. And so what we did with this information is kind of binned it up along with other information, which identified priority armor removal sites done by Hood Canal Coordinating Council and the Fish and Wildlife Beach Strategies data set. And we shared that with our partners at Shore Friendly so that they could conduct targeted outreach to private landowners along the shoreline management unit that do have armoring, kind of working with them more closely and doing workshops and things like that. And we're going to be tracking this action through 2025 and through 2026 to see if there's any more support needed from KNRAMP to support Shore Friendly and doing that targeted outreach and working with those private landowners. So go ahead to the next slide. And I think it's back to you, Brittany.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So another gap that we recognized kind of early in the process of building our database of our assets was that our stream asset inventory, like many other jurisdictions, was lacking. There are many, we are a very lowland, fairly low gradient area with small streams, and so many of our streams are unmapped or incorrectly mapped and misclassified. And so as part of our more recent grant, we also contracted with Wild Fish Conservancy to improve our stream maps and our water typing maps as part of our KNRAMP program. And so they started in Big Beef Creek and wrapped that up, and with some remaining funding, they're going to move into some other creeks. So we just wanted to note that having a comprehensive inventory of your natural assets is a really important part of being able to manage your assets. Next slide, please. And so this map just shows what was previously mapped for streams in the Big Beef watershed, and then you can see all the additional data points that Wild Fish collected, and we'll have the resulting updated maps available shortly for that watershed. And so that'll be something that we'll be pulling into our KNRAMP interactive maps kind of on an ongoing basis, is making sure that we have the best inventory data sets available that we're making our decisions based on. Next, please. So we're now in the phase of moving toward county-wide implementation of the program. And then in the future, and kind of ongoing adaptive management of the program. So some of the things that we'll be doing on a yearly basis as part of the program, first of all, we'll be assessing level of service status across the county. So we'll be looking at what are the current levels of service for each asset and each management unit, and identifying any noticeable changes from the previous year. We'll move into an advisory group discussion with our core team and our other departments, where we'll review those maps and any changes in level of service, and we'll identify areas that we feel need to be focused on, and any actions that we need to advance. So if we're noticing improvements in level of service, we can try to diagnose whether there were any known actions that might have, like such as a large restoration project or fish passage project that we know contributed to the increase in level of service. Likewise, if we notice any major declines in level of service, we can try to identify a cause, if possible, such as a large development that went in, or maybe some water quality issues. And then we can identify the strategies and actions needed to intervene in that management unit before things get much worse. And then we'll be engaging with our partners. That includes largely other county departments, such as roads and stormwater, the health district, parks, as well as our external partners, such as land trusts, to identify sponsors, responsible parties for the different actions. So if it's a fish passage project, we would work with the roads division to get that project on the transportation improvement program plan. If it's a protection project, we need to protect this high functioning forest area, we might work with our land trust partners to support them in maybe getting funding to acquire the property, or doing some outreach to landowners. So there's various strategies that we could use, and we'd be engaging with our partners annually, and especially those county divisions on kind of their annual planning processes, such as our capital facilities plan and our transportation improvement program. And then adaptive management is ongoing, but kind of on an annual basis, we would do a review to look at our program and see what's working well, what needs to be improved. Things like, oh, we know that a large restoration occurred, or we know that a large development went in. Is that being reflected on our maps? Are we seeing the changes in level of service that we would kind of expect based on what we see on the ground? Also, we would need to review kind of annually the data sets that we're using. Are we still using the best data sets available to us, or do we need to consider whether there's new or improved data available that we should be pulling in? And likewise with our assets, we'd be reviewing our assets. Are we still happy with the 3 assets that we're including? Is there another asset that we should be adding to the program, and do we have the data to support that, which is really key? You know, or for some reason, would there be an asset that maybe is not appropriate to include that should be removed, which is unlikely, but something we would consider. Next, please. And so annually, we would produce a report called the State of Our Natural Assets. This would be intended to be pretty short. That would go to our other county departments as well as out to the public and the commissioners as kind of an annual overview of any first of all, the level of service for streams, forests, and shorelines kind of overall county-wide, as well as any major areas of improvement or decline in levels of service and any known causes. We would also put in there any priority geographies for protection and improvement. We would list out some recommended actions for implementation and some partnership opportunities and strategies for implementation. So again, a little bit more high level, and the really in the weeds analysis would happen kind of one-on-one with the different county departments or the different partners. But this is a product that we expect to produce annually. Next, please. And then, you know, just acknowledging that a huge part of actually implementing KNRAMP, you know, the county cannot implement all the actions and strategies on our own, although we can be a catalyst. And so we'll be working with partners like the State Department of Transportation, our many kind of incentive and landowner outreach programs like the Conservation District programs and Shore Friendly Kitsap, the Health District, public utility districts, land trusts such as Great Peninsula Conservancy and Bainbridge Island Land Trust. Naval Base Kitsap is kind of unique to our area. They're a large landholder and also have a railroad with some fish passage issues. And then the West Sound Partners for Ecosystem Recovery, which is the kind of East Kitsap portion, salmon recovery lead entity and local integrating organization, as well as the Hood Canal Coordinating Council, which is the same for the West Sound, or the western part of Kitsap County on Hood Canal. So we would need to work with all these partners to actually implement those solutions that we identified. Next, please. We also wanted to kind of point out specifically the different county departments that overlap with natural assets and thus have some responsibility for helping to steward those assets. So in Public Works, we have the Roads Division, the Stormwater Division, and Sewer and Solid Waste Divisions, and they would interact with natural assets in a few different ways. Obviously, fish passage barriers on roadways. A lot of our roadways are on shorelines and have shoreline armoring, and then stormwater and roadway pollution, and the downstream impacts of stormwater pollution, as well as any pollution from like solid waste and sewer facilities. Our Parks Department is largely in part a natural resource agency as well as a recreation agency. They do quite a bit of targeted restorative forestry and restorative thinning type work. And they also can hold and protect parkland and kind of plan for their parks in ways that are protective of natural resources. And they've been a really great partner, very, very engaged in this program. The Sheriff's Office and the Prosecutor's Office overlaps with natural assets as well, especially in kind of the realm of environmental crimes and enforcement, as well as derelict vessels. We have a derelict vessel program that we work with them on. And then our Community Development Department, we have a lot of different groups within community development that overlap with natural resources. So we've got land use and environmental kind of in the long range planning realm, such as comprehensive planning and kind of code updates. And then also in the current planning realm where folks apply for permits for specific projects and actions, that obviously also interacts with natural resources. And then we've got our natural resource division and environmental programs, which is where folks like me and our Shore Friendly program and our salmon recovery lead entity are all housed within that division. And so we overlap with natural assets by kind of doing that implementation side of protection and restoration. We have a noxious weed program out of our a noxious weed program out of our natural resource division as well, that overlaps with natural assets, and then permitting and code compliance, which I kind of mentioned as well. And so we're trying to bring together all of these different departments and divisions to think about natural resources as assets, since we all overlap with them. Next, please. And a really important part of KNRAMP is that last year we were able to integrate and institutionalize the program into our comprehensive plan. And this is really great because when things get challenging, because as a county, we have kind of many different priorities and many different responsibilities. And sometimes what's best for a built asset is not what's best for a natural asset, and vice versa. But it's very helpful that from the top down, we have institutionalized this program and this approach that natural assets, as far as the county is concerned, are equally as important, if not more important, in certain circumstances than built assets, but need to be approached with the same intention and strategic planning during all of our planning processes. Next, please. And so this slide just kind of outlines some of the existing planning and decision-making processes within the county that we can bring the KNRAMP information into these spaces. So we can bring information from KNRAMP into the capital facilities planning and say, oh, if you're gonna update this facility, we just want you to know that there's this natural asset there and it maybe has a high level of service and really needs to be protected, or in stormwater planning, oh, there's this stream here that has a low score for water quality, and we would really encourage a stormwater retrofit to help improve that, or transportation improvement plan. We can help to prioritize different culverts and fish passage barriers, things like that. And we can look for multi-benefit opportunities. We can use KNRAMP to help locate new or replacement facilities and utilities. We can also use KNRAMP information to support funding applications. So we can provide kind of the technical information to prioritize one area or one action over another in a funding application. We can use it to identify where we have information and data gaps and where we need to invest in research and improved data collection. It's also a really great public communication and transparency tool where we can communicate the details of different areas of the county and how they're kind of functioning ecologically to our public. And on a very high level, it's something that we intend to use to help us track net ecological gain countywide, and the effectiveness of our planning. So it's kind of unique in that many kind of progress tracking approaches and metrics are focused on one type of action, like sometimes we track progress from salmon recovery actions, or we might track no net loss from permitting actions. But this is kind of unique in that it allows us to track the progress in the county regardless of whether an action was the result of a development or a land use policy or enforcement or a salmon recovery action, and kind of give us the big picture. So we're excited to use it in that way. Next, please. Mindy, did you want to hop in for this one?
I can do that, but also invite others to do this as well. So along the way, one of the core elements of the National Estuary Program is always sharing lessons learned here. And we've had a couple different phases of this particular project. So I'll just go through a few of the highlights, but just know we'll show you some resources near the end that also have some lessons learned documents for you. But early on, we had a discussion that I call it the Goldilocks. Like, we don't want the management units too big or too small. They had to be kind of just right for managing, kind of balancing the pragmatic approaches that the county was intending, but also not masking particular scales. So just know that was quite a bit of discussion early on, and looks different for Kitsap County, which is, High Point in the middle. It's basically an island with a whole bunch of small streams and distinct shoreline elements. We also worked a couple different ways to really kind of clarify the goals of this program. One of the things we did in the very first year, before we even started any of the specific assets, is convened a group of folks that included, say, representatives from Bainbridge Island, from Great Peninsula Conservancy, from the Public Utilities District, a number of county divisions, both tribes, to talk about, what would be the benefits of such a program? What would be the pitfalls that we should be aware of? And what should be our goals? And that really provided us with some really firm sideboards for the work that you see here, including, we knew that we wanted systems like data sets that Robinson was talking about earlier, that were collected at a geographic scale over the whole county, had good data stewards who are going to repeat this overall, so that we could use that for monitoring over time, and then also able to prioritize work, go work on that for a few years, and the idea is to come back and assess that as well. And the details that you see here, so forest, streams, and shorelines, those were identified early on in this, but the particular attributes that we used to quantify the level of service was an iterative process. So we didn't want 10 different metrics for something, which is why we had a minimum of 2, and then you see a maximum of 4. But there were a few others that we considered along the way. If you are thinking about something like this, we can tell you a little bit more about our thought process and why we landed on this. But it was certainly an iterative process. And then we learned things along the way as well. And then the software that is used because of the county's investment in Cartograph, which is not unique. There's a lot of different local governments that use Cartograph specifically. We wanted to make sure that whatever was done wasn't sitting just in an adjacent space, but was really interwoven with the same system that the county is using for the gray assets of roads and pipes and things like that. So the software was important, and we're working in a combination of Cartograph and GIS with the idea to try to integrate as much as possible. But our sandbox for development is strongly in the GIS world that Robinson and Jonathan work in. And then the regular coordination, this has been pretty key too, because this is really putting people's best thinking together on what's the need. Early on, we decided provisioning salmon and shellfish was key. It was those cultural resources that we were talking about protecting. And then what that means and how do we get to that was definitely shared across the both tribes and the county, and then working with Ross and us as well. And then within Kitsap County government, what we know is there's all sorts of groups that are doing really great work, but it's just speaking that common language that Brittany talked about earlier, which is why we adopted the level of service terminology to natural ecosystems. And then finally, we do anticipate that this is going to be an adaptive process, which is why we've had a number of phases moving through this. So we came up with a plan. We developed the 2 pilot watersheds just to test this out on Big Beef Creek and Chico Creek. We learned some things in the process, and currently the county and both tribes are working on where to next with this particular work. So adaptive is super important. If you are interested in this, note across the top there, I'll be talking a little bit more about launching programs like this. What's the funding? What are some of the early actions that are needed in a breakout group if you want more information? Back to you, Brittany.
Thanks. Next slide.
And just a quick time check here. I think we're almost at the end of the slides, and then we'll have remarks from Marla and Steve as well. So Brittany, I think 1 minute on the resources, and then we can move to Marla and Steve.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So we just wanted to share some resources that we have available for regarding this program. We've got a couple story maps, which are the first two links. We have a website where we have a lot of information posted, especially from early development of the program. And then Washington Conservation Action also has some information posted on their website.
Thanks, Brittany, and thanks, everyone. So Marla and Steve will share some insights as well, specifically related to the lessons learned from their engagement and the development of the program. So Marla, we'll go to you first. Take it away, and then we'll move to Steve.
All right, thanks, Dana. Just some, quick thoughts about tribal perspective here. And I know that can be kind of challenging to have a number of different corporations and governments and agencies working together. But I wanted to just say that from the tribe's perspective, it's been really great to be part of this process because we were able to work with the group to identify like Big Beef Creek as an important system that we wanted to focus on. And this KNRAMP process helped us, find data and data gaps that help us analyze which areas are needed to, restore and preserve this system. So that was information we didn't have, and it's allowed us to find actions that we can take pretty quickly through the project to make pretty significant improvements, as Robinson pointed out, for the shoreline, marine shoreline area. Key components for is monitoring the natural assets. I think that is a strong key component that is baked in, built in, and it's going to help this program move forward. And so always identifying how your actions are able to move the dial. And I'm really excited to see Brittany use the word net ecological gain in the system. It's really important that we make improvements systematically and big pieces. So this is going to help us show you can move the dial by making these small specific project changes to a system that's pretty well data resourced and prioritized. So I think that's really important to be able to show that you can make improvements and show that things can improve. And then really once you make an investment in these natural assets, they gain in value over time versus having to come back and be maintained. It costs more money to maintain once you have them in place. So they actually will gain, function and value for both people and the system. Let's see. So level of service components that the tribes are able to incorporate into this process. One would be fish passage barriers that have been identified before, but we were really inclined to include those, and we're glad that they've been able to be part of the tribe's prioritization of natural resources. And also the level of service for the shoreline areas by including the shellfish growing areas. So when tribes can harvest in healthy shellfish beds, that's a big bonus to both the ecological system and to the tribe's cultural and values moving on to the future. It's great to see that some of these components have been incorporated into the comprehensive plan. And I think that as time moves forward, hopefully we can add more pieces of KNRAMP to the comprehensive plan, and through that develop a sister program, like the natural resource asset management program would be to the capital facilities program and capital improvement programs. So really strong sister programs so that they can run together. And it's very evident that this process has been very collaborative, iterative, and has included a wide array of departments, agencies, governments, and funding sources. So I feel like we're making progress, and we're making really good progress together. So working together is going to be a really good way to break down some silos and really speak the same language and keep moving forward with improvements to the ecosystem processes. And I wanted to give a big shout out to Dana and her team at Ross, and Robinson and Mindy with Washington Conservation Action Education Fund for their very deliberate work in including us in their process. I know our schedules can be kind of tricky, and getting us to engage and respond has been hard, but you've been dedicated. So I just want to thank them for that. And I'll hand it over to Allison and Steve for their comments.
Thank you, Marla. Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, I'll start, and then if Allison wants to add some observations too. Marla provided a lot of good comments there, and I'll not probably retread on some of those, but a few things that maybe just some observations from being involved with the core team, and also maybe to just get people thinking as we go into some of the more discussion and breakout sessions. Couple of things just to point out is that protecting intact ecosystem services is generally much less expensive than restoring degraded systems. I think most of us recognize that. At the same time, we can't realistically protect in different ways everything we want. We simply don't have the funding to do that. And there are other obstacles to doing that. And so a balance of protection and restoring those degraded systems is needed. And so when you look at the differences, we got a chance to look at some examples there of current level of service, or LOS, and desired level of service, or DLOS. You could see that there are many areas in all of the three streams, marine shorelines, and forests. There are many areas where there's a big gap between that LOS and desired LOS, and it would mean a lot to achieve desired LOS, or even approach that, and that would probably mean not just protecting, but restoring and doing some significant restoration of these ecosystems. And so I guess that kind of leads me down the road further, and I think at least one of the discussion groups will talk about this, is how we, one thought is how we leverage existing successful programs. One such program, at least in my opinion, is like the shore-friendly Kitsap program, and opportunities to scale that type of program up. I think could be really useful. It engages with, in this case, shoreline landowners. And that's just one model that comes to mind for me, and how you might adopt that type of an approach along the streams and riparian areas. I recognize that Kitsap Conservation District in our area does kind of already do that, engaging with landowners, and is able to get fish passage and some restoration projects done that are meaningful. Again, it's sort of planting that. I know others have maybe explored that option, but how we do that and build that type of program. And then another is sort of along the same lines, is exploring additional creative ways to fund what I call big and bold, or large scale restoration projects that address multiple ecosystem services. Some examples that come to mind there are when you correct fish passage, and you also have an opportunity to revegetate with native vegetation along a stretch of stream, and restart that process of growing a new forest or reconnecting floodplains. And then I guess maybe the last thing I'll leave with is the time it takes to recover or improve ecosystem level of service. Something like fish passage, you can improve that level of service in a matter of months or maybe years, realistically, almost instantaneously, some could argue, of course, but whereas restoring a riparian forest takes decades or longer to really achieve those full ecosystem benefits. And I don't really have a you know, a punchline with that. It's just sort of how we think about the different activities, and protecting land and protecting streams is, we think, as forever, but there's an investment in having to steward that place over a long time, and the thought goes into that. I guess that's it from me. If Allison might, I don't know if you want to add anything, or it'd be great. But thank you, Dana.
Thank you, Steve.
Mhm.
Allison, is there anything else that you'd like to add or emphasize? Oh, and I think Allison is not anymore on the, I'm not seeing her on the participants list. But I think she was present up until maybe 10 minutes ago. So thanks everyone for the presentation, and thanks to everyone for participating in the Q&A. I see a lot of questions, and I will say that some of them will most likely be answered into the breakout groups. So some of them are really specific to certain topics that we have for the focus discussions. Maybe we can take one or two questions now, and then maybe Brittany and Kirby, the questions that I'm going to ask are going to be directed to you. But I see a few questions about how KNRAMP is implemented within the county. So maybe I will just mention two questions that I think can be addressed together. Could you speak about how does your county council support the natural resource asset management program? And also, how are you educating or coordinating with staff in different departments within the county? So I'll just offer some time for brief responses, and then I'll say we want to move into the breakout groups because we want to have time for those focus discussions, and those will be a bit more detailed so people can interact with the members of the core team.
I can take the first question, Dana, about how the Board of County Commissioners supports the Natural Resource Asset Management Program. So dating back to prior to 2018, when Department of Community Development staff identified this project and idea, we needed the board's approval to apply for grants in order to, apply for the grant and get funding resources to really start this initiative. So their support in us pursuing grant funding opportunities and in partnering with Washington Conservation Action Education Fund has really been instrumental in anything that we're doing to move this project forward. More recently, in 2024, in 2 years prior to 2024, we've been working in developing key goals in the comprehensive plan, specifically in the environment chapter, where we identify natural resources as an asset, and also developed, concrete policies and strategies in how to meet that goal of treating natural resource as an asset. And our Board of County Commissioners continuously supported that goal and policies and strategies, and ultimately approved our comprehensive plan and environment chapter in 2024. And so I think that speaks volumes as to how they see this as an important initiative for us to take in ensuring that we uplift the values of natural resources the same way that we view our built infrastructure.
Thank you, Kirby. Brittany, I'm not sure if you want to take the second part of the question about how you are educating or coordinating with staff in different departments within the county.
Yeah, I can do that. So we have monthly coordination meetings with other departments. We call it our environmental consortium meetings, where we've shared quite a few updates on the KNRAMP development. We also have representatives from several county departments on the core team. So we've had representatives from roads, stormwater, and parks pretty regularly engaged at our core team meetings throughout the development of the program. And then finally, as representatives from the Department of Community Development, we are invited to the table during the annual planning processes for stormwater, capital facilities, and roads. And so we are able to bring information from KNRAMP, like our maps with our level of service showing different areas into those planning and decision making spaces. And then we're also just available, we've been reached out to by various staff members. Hey, what does KNRAMP say about this site? And we hope that it'll kind of catch on and people will reach out to us more when they are wondering about a specific action or specific area.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Thanks again to everyone for asking all those questions in the Q&A. So please save those questions for the breakout groups. Casey, I'm wondering if you could share again the slide with the breakout groups. So we have 5 groups, each focused on a different part of the program. So you can see them listed on the slide. We have a group that will focus on building the KNRAMP foundation, the framework and the data. Another one on launching KNRAMP, funding partnerships and early actions. Another one on the plans and the practice, specifically implementation, monitoring, and adaptive management. A 4th one that will talk about aligning with county planning, integrating KNRAMP into the comprehensive and the capital plans. And then a final one, a 5th one, that will focus on partnering for impact, supporting KNRAMP from adjacent sectors. Again, you can choose your own adventure, and you can choose the room by clicking on the breakout rooms icon in Zoom. And you can also transition across different groups if you want to be part of the of multiple discussions. And I think with that, maybe Casey, we can launch the groups. And I'll mention that there will be a window popping up that will allow you to choose your group. And then we'll return it in the main room where some of the leads from each of the group, and the leads are our core team, will share some key takeaways. So with that, I will say let's go ahead and launch the groups.
And I'll be in the main session if anybody comes out and wants to switch into a different room and needs help with that, or you can automatically do it yourself. So I'll open the rooms now.
Thank you, Casey.
If you would like some help moving in, I can move you as well. Does anybody need help? Christian, Cynthia, Diane, Lisa, Victoria, do you need any help moving into a breakout room? For those of you still here, I will move you into a breakout room, and then you can, if you're able to come back to your phone or laptop and want to change into a different one, feel free to come back into the main session and I can move you back. Hi. Hello, Shara, would you like some help moving? Oh, never mind. Becca, would you like to change rooms? Hi, Naomi, would you like help going into a breakout room? Would you like help moving to a breakout room? Hello, people will start to filter back in here shortly.
Hey, Casey, I don't know if you're screen sharing or seeing your email.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
How are you, Elizabeth?
Long time no see. I think I get to meet with you every week. I think we're in the
so.
middle week. I think I get to see you next week too. It's so fun. Welcome back, everyone. I'm watching for Dana to return from her breakout room.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm happy to see everyone back. I'm sure the breakout groups went really fast, and I appreciate your engagement here. So I think we have a few minutes to hear some takeaways from each breakout group, and then maybe we can open it up to the full group to see if there are any additional considerations that you'd like to raise. So we'll do a quick round robin with our team. And Robinson, I think we can start with you, and then I'll go to Mindy, then to Brittany, then to Kirby and Jim, and then to Elizabeth. So Robinson, would you like to get us started?
Yeah, thanks, Dana. Yeah, our group, we talked a lot about kind of that this, especially when it comes to data, is an iterative process, and that there's a lot of work that went on upfront in the program to decide on which data sets to use, which attributes to focus on, all building towards the overall goal for the project, which was to monitor critical areas and to improve shellfish and salmon productivity by protecting habitats. And so we talked a lot about those data sets, if we had considered weighting them or in the absence of data sets. And we heard a lot of really good ideas about what we could do in the future to, refine our data so that it pointed towards the actions that we're looking for, or also if we're missing data for certain management units, kind of what that means for the overall level of service, which is a really interesting idea. But I think overall, the main takeaway that I'd say from our group was that it's a very iterative process. There's a lot of changes that were made early on and that continue to be made. It's a new idea, and it's really exciting to do something like this. So,
thanks, Robinson. Mindy, would you like to go next?
Sure. We had a good wide-ranging conversation, so hard to summarize, but we had a question right off the bat about what does the role of public versus private lands look like in here, and we talked about it as when we map the current levels of service across Kitsap County, that's for the composite of all public and private. When we identify particular gaps that need to be filled, then our attention first focused on, well, what could be achieved on public lands? So for example, Kitsap County Parks owns property, and it might include unforested areas that they might have a goal to reforest an area. Can we start including that in the projections for future conditions? And then also on private lands is the example that Robinson used in the pilot watershed for Big Beef Creek, knowing that Shore Friendly is a program that works with private landowners, and we knew that we needed to figure out a way to reduce shoreline armoring in that unit in order to achieve a high levels of service. And that's an example of using incentives to work directly with private landowners. But again, Shore Friendly is a good and well-developed program that's already been active in Kitsap County and others for a number of years. And then we talked a bit about regulatory. So at this point, the county, it's not necessarily like a regulatory, like we can't force somebody to take out shoreline armor through this project, but what we can do is figure out the degree to which shoreline armoring is interfering with ecosystem services, and let's explore what we can do and start accounting for that over time. Plus, the county has committed in its comprehensive plan to be using this in the future. So a regulatory action might not be the first action out of the gate, but the goal is let's start accounting for the types of activities that are done on a restoration framework, also be taking up some protection programs, but most importantly, a system of accountability over time to know whether the systems are working and if so, how they need to be adapted over time. And then lastly, I'll just say, we talked briefly about transferring to other organizations or geographies. We have a number of materials available on our website, on the county's website as well. But one question is would this type of work be eligible for other state grants going toward like comp plans? And I don't see why not. Frankly, it's just a different way of doing comprehensive planning by putting natural resources into the mix. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mindy. Brittany, I'll go to you next.
Thanks. I'll just share 2 highlights. One was a question around funding this long term, how we're going to fund this work. And we emphasized the importance of integrating the program into work that we're already doing, into bringing it into the spaces, the capital facilities planning, transportation planning, comprehensive planning, etc. So since it's work that we're already doing, we don't really see the need to separately fund that work. It's just this program is just going to help us do that work better. But we would obviously need to fund specific actions such as restoration projects or stormwater retrofits, et cetera. And so we would look to our traditional funding sources and more creative funding sources in the future to do that. And then another thing that was brought up was, and it's similar to what I think Robinson shared, is the limitation of our inventory of our natural resources and our critical areas being a real problem, especially in the regulatory and permitting realm. You can't protect an asset if you don't know where it is. I think that we totally acknowledge that is a big issue. And if anyone from any funding agencies is listening, I would emphasize that is a big issue, and that capacity and funding for improving our inventories and mapping of critical areas is a huge issue. Now that we have an institutionalized program in the county, this KNRAMP program, we're hoping it'll improve our ability to advocate for this important work and apply for funding. And we now have a place to house it. And by acknowledging natural resources as assets, we're hoping that we can recruit more internal support for inventorying those resources because they are county assets.
Thank you, Brittany. Kirby and Jim, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, I can give you a couple of highlights. First, I would just say that the breakout sessions were way too short. We had, I think, room for a lot more discussion. So, but one of the big ones was, how was KNRAMP integrated into our county code, our comp plan? And right now, it's not integrated into our code because it's not regulatory, as some others have said. But throughout the comp plan, I think Brittany alluded to that, it started out as a mention in the 2016 plan, and now it's well integrated into multiple chapters throughout the comp plan, and also integrated into our capital facilities planning. And then the net ecological gain aspect of this is, this is allowing us to go from no net loss thought process to thinking more about net ecological gain. And this data and this program is, I think, really advancing that for us here in the county. Let's see. And then the next question was, one of the last ones was, does the public have access to this information? And right now, yes, but only for the 2 watershed pilot program areas. This year, we're developing that countywide, and so as that develops, the entire county will be available for the public to review that information.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Elizabeth, do you want to go next?
Yes, just 2 quick takeaways. Thanks to everyone who showed up for the partnership group. So one is, I think there's real opportunities to strengthen partnerships with co-regulators and with partners on the Hood Canal side of Kitsap County. So Brittany, you'll be hearing from me on some ideas there. And then second, we talked about sort of money as a valuing system for natural assets. And I think there's support for not using money as the valuing metric for natural assets in the way that we've done here, sort of looking at their services. But there's also acknowledgement that depending on who you're talking to, sort of an economic lens may be more impactful. So
thank
great
you,
conversations.
Elizabeth. Thank you so much for reporting on these key takeaways. It seems that everyone had very rich and engaging conversations, and we'll make sure to make the groups maybe longer next time. Let's open it up to the full group. I think we have 3 more minutes, so maybe 1 minute for a final takeaway. If anyone would like to raise their hand and speak up, feel free to share any takeaways from the conversations that you had in your group.
This is Kirby. I just wanted to offer up to anybody here who wants to reach out to Kitsap County to talk more in depth about how we're running this program and our future intentions for it. Brittany, I'm sure, is open, and Jim and myself and Jonathan and Doug are open to anybody reaching out to learn more about KNRAMP. So feel free to do so. You should have our emails or put in the chat.
Yes,
Thank you, Kirby. Bruce, thanks for being our volunteer. So we'll go to you, and then I'll go to Brittany to wrap us up. So Bruce,
I just quickly wanted to share the idea that we need to do a lot of modeling, the marine space modeling and understanding what is a healthy forest seems to be critical to being able to identify ecological gain.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it. I know we have 2 more minutes, so Brittany, I'll hand it over to you to wrap us up. And then I do want to flag for people, we have a question for you in the chat. What's one idea you're taking away from this discussion, or one action you'll consider in your own work? Go ahead and type your key input or observations into the chat. We definitely want to hear what are the key takeaways and what you're planning to implement after the workshop. So with that, Brittany, I'll turn it over to you. And then Casey, I think we can share the list of contacts as well so that people have it.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. I'll just start with, we have another workshop planned in September. So you'll be receiving information about that. If you're interested in joining, feel free to share it. Again, feel free to please reach out. And I'll just end by saying, you know, we're learning this, right? This is new, and by no means is you know, Kitsap perfect. We, you know, have our own priorities that compete, and our own silos, and our own you know, kind of history of old ways and stuff. And so we are really this is just adapting and learning, and we look forward to working with you all as you do similar work to learn from each other and help each other kind of overcome challenges and barriers as we, you know, implement these types of philosophies into our, you know, local government's planning processes and strategic planning. Really grateful to have all of you as partners in this work. And another thanks to our core team and Ross Strategic and Washington Conservation Action. And thank you to everyone for being here. And I look forward to continuing these discussions and partnerships.
Thank you, Brittany, and thank you to our full team for this workshop, and thanks to everyone for the great conversation. We'll share the slides with everyone after the workshop, and I would like to reiterate, feel free to reach out if you'd like to connect with us, and also feel free to attend the workshop in September. It will be a similar workshop, but it will be another opportunity to engage with us. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, you guys did great.